Loy, I'm going to turn it over to you. Thank you so much.
I love it. Yeah. So welcome everybody. So excited to be here to talk about this, and get to nerd out with you guys for about an hour and really dive into some of these things. And our goal today is to, of course, touch on some things that I know that you guys have done in the room with Parcel Viewer, but also to find those things that you haven't, and try to uncover a pearl or two for everybody in the room, something that you didn't know Parcel Viewer could do, or maybe you just didn't know how to use it. Okay. And I'll confess, first confession is I'm not an expert on this, but I feel like I'm pretty good at it. And so we're going to use my pretty good skills to try to get you guys pretty good skills too. Okay. Sound great? Our flight pattern is over there on the board. Those are going to be the things that we try to hit today. And so it's going to be, like I said, a little bit of drinking from a fire hose. So we're going to hit historical deeds, how to pull those up. A lot of people already know how to do that, but that's a relatively new feature because it's only popped in about the last 4 or 5 years in Parcel Viewer. The last development recording is very, very valuable if you're dealing with condos and PUDs. Aerial imagery is fun if you are looking for the way that a piece of land is developed over several years. Informational layers, will unpack that a little bit. The best way to print and capture, and that's even if you want to print to PDF and stay in the electronic world. We'll go over that too. Search by shape and exporting farming lists. Both of those are tied together because we're going to use a search by shape. We can either do a straight line or a polygon that we create, and then export all of the properties that are in that shape that we create to a mailing list that we can export to Excel. And then measuring length and area, which of course, I will say this 10 times before we get done. It is not the gospel. It's just pretty close to the gospel. It's like they took the King James Bible and translated it 10 times. That's what you get out of that. And so remember, when it comes to measuring length and area, the only true opinion that matters is a surveyor's opinion. And even surveyors can differ about those things sometimes. Okay. So without further ado, let's get started, right? Now, I bet we're going to see a lot of hands when we talk about historical deeds. How many people have ever looked at the last deed or an owner's deed through Parcel Viewer? Yeah, that's gotten really, really popular. And if you have been in the business 5 or more years, you probably remember that 5, 10 years ago, you really didn't have access to deeds without calling up a title agency, getting your own subscription to each county like we have because we are a title company, or driving down to the courthouse and doing the yeoman's work to try to figure out how to get that out of the record. But this is how we do it. So just because I like to protect the innocent, I'm going to disclose a lot of things about my property. There's a couple of properties that we're going to use today. This is my primary residence. So if anybody wants to come and figure out where I live, this is it right here. I'm pretty easy to stalk. So this is an HPR PUD that I live in. And if you've ever been to my HPR PUD class, you know why I use those terms together, because it is an HPR as we describe it in MLS, but it's also a planned unit development, meaning that there are 2 properties on the same lot right there. And each property can be deeded to different people. So that's an HPR PUD. We're not going to go too deep into that. But you can quickly see over here at the last sale instrument, we can click on that and pull up the last deed of record. So that's it right there. And man, I'm terrible with these Apple scrolls.
Yeah, I don't like it. It's I'm with you. I'll put that in my request. It's good with the old light
Oh
finger,
yeah, I was going the wrong way. Yeah,
touchy. Yeah,
I was doing PC.
Apple doesn't work.
Yeah, that works. So this is where we can just pull up that last deed of record. And if your hand did not go up that you have done that before, this is a great opportunity to try that out for just a second. If you own real estate, definitely play around with your own parcel. Or if there's a parcel that you're getting ready to list, one that's under contract, you might want to pull that parcel up and play with it if you don't own real estate yourself. So easy thing to do right there. A lot of people have done that. We know that that is going to be the last deed of record right there. But if a newer feature that they have provided to us with Parcel Viewer is the ownership history and the property history. So we can go back in the ownership history. And years ago, I bought this property from Richard and Terry Retberg. And this is the deed where they took ownership to the property. And so you can see that I can just really crawl back through the records. And if you guys are interested in it, you can determine a few things just by sleuthing around in here before you even open up the records. So this is Austin Hill, who incidentally used to be a realtor here at Village years and years ago. He was a partner with Jamie Helms, and he actually owned the house that I live in now. But of course, he sold it for $455,000. I know he wished he still had that property now, right? And then that was quickly sold again, and it went through a foreclosure type proceeding at one point, and that's why Primacy Closing Corporation ended up with it. And then Richard Retberg was an attorney, and he bought it out of that foreclosure. So all that's just kind of the bird's eye view of what's going on there. But the important part is you can go back and pull up any of these deeds. We can pull up the deed way back when Austin Hill, he actually owned it with Sam Easley for a while. Well, let's look at his purchase. Let's see. This is when they originally purchased it back in 2004. You see, if you can go back as far as 2004, you can see a lot of information. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Let's go back and do it again. I love that. If you ever get lost, throw up a hand. That's a perfect way to do it. And I'll go back and repeat the way we got there. So are you talking about the original search?
No, I got the original search.
Okay.
Pulling up the actual.
Woo, look at that. Holy cow. Here we go. Here we go. I feel like Superman. There we go. Wow.
Yeah, don't worry, it's in the request it's not my favorite. There may be
Yeah.
a zoom and, yeah,
Let's
I'm on
see.
a scroll wheel.
Yeah. We'll see. I'll pull her down like this.
Okay,
Let's see if I can find.
the menu,
Yeah. I don't know where my menu went after all that.
hit escape on this.
Yeah.
No.
I just brought that guy back up, didn't it? Floating.
It's all right.
Let's do this. I'm just going to start over.
There you go. So just pull it up.
Yeah. Perfect. Let's see if I can control the
No,
wheel a little
No,
bit.
it's okay.
Yeah.
I'm gonna.
And this will get us from scratch. Okay. So if you've done the search and you've already figured that out, you don't need to worry about this part, but you just click on the little magnifying glass. That's where a lot of people get lost. And that brings up our search panel down here. And you can search by parcel, address, intersection, owner, street name, all that business. So in this case, we are going to search by parcel. And there we go. Bring that down. Wow, this thing's jumpy. Teddy, if this continues to do this, we may just use my laptop if that's okay.
Yeah, and I'm gonna, while you're doing that, I might be able to navigate an alternative.
Because I lost my other screen over here too.
Where's that?
My panel over here on the side. Anytime I scroll, it just kind of goes away.
Oh, boy.
See if I can't be a little more ginger with it.
It's okay. Okay, so I think what's happening is you're hey man, this is live TV, friends. So what's happening is you're sorry, you're zooming in on the whole screen here.
Yeah.
And yeah, I don't know how that's happening there, Mark.
See, she's jumpy.
Yeah, it's
That's okay. Let's see if we can struggle through it. See what we get.
yeah. Sorry, y'all. why it's not.
Oh, yeah, I was there this morning. As a matter of fact, that's where the orange juice came from. Yeah,
Let me I'll get Jeremy up here. We'll get a quick,
yeah.
quick shift to it.
Heck, even if we got like an old school mouse, that'd be great, but. Come on. Wow.
Let me.
Guys, I'm so sorry about the technical difficulties we're having.
I'm gonna do something different for you boys. It's like, I don't know what
Damn.
it's zooming in the whole screen here. I don't understand
Yeah,
that.
it just did it again.
Hey, man, this mouse is really challenging for using Parcel Viewer, and it's zooming in on the whole screen, and then we lose all the navigation.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, the magic mouse.
It's,
Is there just
I
a
just don't have the
traditional
magic.
mouse we could get?
Yeah.
I normally carry one with me. But
thank you.
thank you so much. I have an email request going to right now for you.
Woohoo.
And mouse.
Should be a touch screen, but it is.
Damn it, just did it
You're
again.
saying that should be a touch screen?
How about that? Fixed it a little bit. Yeah. Thanks,
thank you
Jeremy.
So much.
See what we can do old school here. Yeah.
Sorry, y'all. Appreciate your patience.
Either.
This one never happened.
There we go.
Unbelievable. I don't even know what that noise indicates.
You want to just throw it up on my laptop?
And the
Does that
keyboard
matter?
is also making a weird click, like, I don't know what that.
Probably, it's probably,
We're in a dialogue box. but
yeah, it's probably a feedback thing that you're not. Hang on, just let me get this.
Let's see. Great. Oh my God, that's
Make sure the
amazing.
Keyboard's working.
Woo! Let's see.
I turned that on, so.
Let's see.
I just turned it off.
Floating here. There we go. Now I think we're cooking with gas now. No. Sounds like the input's going in. It's just not. Yeah. It's charged. You want to just leave it unplugged? Looks like we're working now.
Whatever.
All right. Yeah. All right. Now we'll see. All right. All right. Now we're cooking with gas. All right. And I want to point out that we have an old school mouse from the Reagan administration, and that's working for me. So now we're going to get back to here. And back to your question, you said, how did we get to that point? Now that we've searched the property, all we have to do is go over to our left-hand pane over here. You see the general information. That's where we can easily pull up the last deed of record right here on the sale instrument. And you can see all the blue things. Those are the hyperlinked. Those are the ones where it's going to take you someplace else if you click on those. So if we click on that one, that'll get us the last deed of record. If we want to comb back through the history, we just find the ownership history tab here and open that up. And it gives us a different selection. And that is the ownership history. And every different owner is color blocked there for us. So we can just kind of go down through there and see which owners we want to look at. Good deal? Everybody pretty good on how to figure out the different owners of record, what they paid for the property, and how to find those deeds. And it looks like this goes back as far as 2000. And let's look at a different property just as a for instance. This is another one that we're going to look at from time to time today. And it is I'll look at 246 Wiley Street. Oops, that's not right. Yeah, that's the one I'm looking at now. Just to show you guys in the ownership history, we can go back even as far as 82, 74. We have deed records that date back that far that we can look at. We can look at Larry Neal and his wife. By the way, Ed Ux, if you ever see that in a deed, that's back in the old days when husbands generally were the ones named and they would just say and wife. And that's what that means in Latin, Ed Ux. And it'll give us that old deed. So really for the usable history of what we need for deeds, unless you're really going back way back in time, all these things are going to be available for us on Parcel Viewer now, as long as you can find the map and parcel for what you're looking for. That sound good? All right, so we've checked off number one there, historical deeds. Anybody have any questions about that before we move on to last development recording? Okay, so I'm going to go back up to general information. I'm going to stay on this property, but you can stay at the one on your screen. You don't have to follow me by address. But we've already looked at this very first hyperlink that's right here, the sale instrument. If you go down to the parcel instrument, the one down below it, that's going to be the last development deed of record. Now, this property right here, when I bought this property, it had 100 feet of road frontage. In other words, it was two old lots. It was lot 39 right here and lot 40, okay? But what I did was I filed a quitclaim deed to separate those two into their two map and parcels. So you can see right here, and I've used this very clear language, the purpose of this instrument is just to reestablish an existing underlying lot line to obtain separate map and parcel numbers, okay? So what I did here was, the lot, when I bought it, looked like this. It had the dotted line there. Anytime you see a dotted line on Metro Mapping, that means that it's eligible to revert back to those original lot lines by making that dotted line a solid line. Okay, I'm going to say that again. If you have a dotted line lot like this one next door, it's that, and you see the dotted line, that means the line isn't there, but it's eligible to be redrawn without having to go through the planning authority. Okay. And that's what I did, because when I bought this property, 39 and 40 were merged into one map and parcel, meaning there could only be one owner of those two lots put together, those two lot numbers put together. But I filed this quitclaim deed right here that instructed Metro Mapping and instructed the taxing authority that I wanted separate map and parcel numbers for those, and I wanted them to be alienable or sellable to different owners if I so chose. Now, another little teachable point there, it isn't required that there be, that the house not encroach, because you can see that, and in actuality, the house that's on there does encroach across the lot. So it'd be very difficult for me to sell it like this, but I'm gonna be ready. When it comes time for me to knock that house down and do a build there, I'm gonna be ready to do two build where only one was eligible before. Yeah, Virginia.
Can you really trust the picture?
No,
Outline?
no, you can't. It may not be there, yeah. But luckily I've had boots on the ground there, and I know actually the house, actually it gets over pretty close. It's closer to straddling the center line there than what this would represent.
Generally, you could,
It's a good general approximation, but you never want to rely on it as the gospel, you know? It's the 4 times translated gospel, and it may be right. Yeah. Another one? Yeah.
So with HPRs
Mhm.
on the exhibit Bs,
Yeah.
I don't see the dotted line.
That's-
And when you're developing HPR, you put that dotted line wherever you want it to be.
That's right.
So we sometimes see them be a little odd.
Right.
So where I'm going with this question, I'm just kind of talking out loud.
That's right.
So
It's a great point that you bring up. So with that in mind, I'm going to go back to my primary residence, because that is an HPR, and we can look at that a little better. Let's see.
so in HPR, how many, you have 2 parcels, you can have 2 parcel numbers. in HPR, right?
That's right. But you still only have one lot number with an HPR. This is a little bit different because we didn't file a declaration. We just said we have an existing right, just like lots 37 and 38 that has one map and parcel now, they have an existing right to go back to become 2 lots. And they can do that by right. They don't have to do the more academic exercise of filing a declaration to get that done. Yeah. So, but let's say this, we know that this lot right here is zoned RS 8.5, right? And what does the S stand for? All you dirt diggers out there.
Single family.
Yeah, single family. So that means to me as a developer that it is not eligible for an HPR PUD, right? I can't put 2 dwellings on this one lot right here, okay? So that means, and this is true in a lot of Madison where this is, it's protected so that most of Madison, a lot of it anyway, is only RS, meaning you can only have 1 dwelling per lot. So what I did here is I said, well, I found this property here that had an existing right like this one, so it can have its own lot numbers. So that's even better than an HPR, right? But if this was zoned R 8.5, that means I could have divided it in 2, just like I did, and then also put 2 dwellings here and then 2 dwellings over here. Okay. So that's the difference and the distinction that you're going to see with the RS versus R lots. Okay. So that leads us to something else that I want to talk about. And we've talked about the ownership history. Property history is a little bit helpful looking at the same thing. It just tells you kind of the history of how things were broken up, if that happened, like I did here. But the zoning history is very helpful. So if I pull this up, oh, I'm sorry, it's 7.5. I said it was 8.5, but it's RS 7.5. If I look here, I can tell that, miss my window. I could have, from 1974 to 1998, created an HPR here. As long as I filed for my codes application and got my building permits before January 1st of 1998. At that point, they changed it to RS 7.5. If on January 2nd of 98, I went down to the codes department and said, I'm ready to pull my permits so I can build my 2-unit dwelling here, HPR, they'd say, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, you lost out. I can't give you a permit to build 2. I can only give you a permit to build 1. Did you have a question? I thought I saw a question in the back. I'm so sorry. Yeah. So this tells you a little bit about that history and what's gone on in the community. And that can kind of give you, whether you're looking at a property that you're interested in or a neighboring property, it can kind of give you what might be the trajectory of the neighborhood. So if you find a property that is still zoned to R8, but you're finding a lot of streets and neighborhoods around that are trending to go RS, that means that it's probably going to be a dwindling asset that you're dealing with, and you might want to move on it or encourage your builder to move on it. Oh, they'll do mail outs. Yeah. Now, most homeowners ignore those mail outs, right? Now, we as practitioners, we're pretty good about it, and we kind of open them up and read them. But I'll be honest with you, unless I feel like it's really impacting my property, I don't go to those meetings and show up and talk about it. I can't remember the last time I was on a microphone at a commission meeting, but I have been at the BZA several times to do things like this. Yeah, Board of Zoning and Appeals, by the way. All right, so everybody good with the zoning history part? Yeah.
Yes.
Mhm.
That you have is, for example, say that law. I mean, in 1996, the national resident who owns that law might not be wrong. They not be really about it today, because Nashville wasn't what it is now.
Right.
And so is that impossible to go back to and say, hey, I understand I should have done this.
Yeah.
Is there a way to go back and say, you know, what's happened on my block?
No, it's hard to do. It's an uphill battle. So generally you're going to file for a variance, and the variance is going to be denied. And then you've got to go to the Board of Zoning and Appeals to appeal the variance. And they're going to look at the attendant circumstances around that. They're going to look at the neighborhood character. They're going to look at the timing. If you did it now with this property, like if I went in there today and I said, you know, I just want to do this because there's several other people on my street or block that are grandfathered in, they're probably going to say, no, you're not even close because you lost this ability back in 1998. You're about 24 years late. What the heck have you been doing? Yeah. Yeah. Like if you were, let's say, 2 months late, you're going to have a stronger likelihood of being successful, not on application, that's still going to be denied, but on appeal with the BZA.
Well, I guess I thought Nashville, because of the current population in Nashville,
Mhm.
the city must be looking for to be able to expand.
Yeah.
Uses of property without actually.
Yeah, that's right.
We have population this year.
Yeah.
And you are coming. And so, especially back to the streets and things coming.
Mm-hmm.
So do you think that now, because it's going to be coming in the next 5 years or so, do you think that they might have a chance now because those HPRs are actually really helpful?
Well, I'll tell you this, just to kind of button this issue up, because it kind of exceeds the scope of what we're talking about here, which is Parcel Viewer. But I agree with you. It's the arm wrestling match that Nashville's involved with on how do we get more affordability? Does density bring that versus not in my backyard? And Nashville has been dealing with that since before I was born, really. You know, used to be back in the day, there were people that were like, no way, we don't want any lots smaller than 5 acres. And of course, we've, get down smaller and smaller. And now my backyard, I can't even have a full-size dog because he would have no place to poop. I have a tiny backyard. Yeah. Yeah, but good question. If you want to catch me afterwards, I'll pull up my soapbox and we'll talk about it, till the cows come home. So that's the last development recording, and also gets into a little bit of the zoning history, which is really helpful if you are looking for trajectories in neighborhoods or what's going on with the abilities of what to do with the property. Oh, and by the way, did anybody notice that these hot links are in here too? So if I just happen to be interested, I can click on the link and it'll take me to the legislation search. And I can actually go and look for the specific legislation that gave rise to this neighborhood becoming RS 7.5 in the bulk zoning code.
Where was that link again, Lauren?
It's just right here, that hot link.
Perfect.
There's another one right down here.
Yeah.
Anytime you see that bright blue, and thanks for bringing that up again, Teddy. Anytime you see the bright blue, that means it's a hot link and it's going to take you somewhere else. Yeah.
I found that pretty useful when we were.
Oh, yeah.
Like, height restrictions and things like that.
Yes.
That's where you find specific information. What the overlay.
That's right. Yeah. And there are, to be honest with you, I told you I was pretty good at this, not an expert, but I fumble a little bit when it comes to overlays and always have to feel around for it. But up here in layering, there's one of the layer options. I'm sorry, this little guy here. There's one of these layer options that will show you the overlays. And always have to feel for it and watch what pops up and go to a neighborhood where I know there's an overlay and wait till I see it, that kind of thing. Yeah, good point. Of course, moving on down the list here, we've got assessment history. So that's pretty important, but we know we can get to that through CRS. We can get the assessment history a number of ways, but that just happens to be here too if you need it. And then stormwater elevation certificate, that normally doesn't have a ton of things unless you have filed an elevation certificate to show that the home is out of harm's way, even though the lot may be in harm's way. So if you have any questions about elevation certificates, they're very, very useful if you have a property that's in a floodplain, but the home is not in the floodplain. And then permit history. We're going to save that till the end. That's going to be kind of like our bonus question there. So you can go back and look at some permit documents if that's something you're interested in with a property.
Okay, I'll have to leave before you get there, but
Yeah.
I just have one question.
Yeah.
So I was looking through things. If I know that work was done on a property
Mhm.
and I look in this permit history and
Yeah.
it's only goes, like it's only 1978, and I know that they like did a huge kitchen redo and all these things,
Yeah.
but there's nothing listed. Does that mean that nobody pulled in permits or they just haven't been?
There's always could be indexing errors,
Okay,
but it strongly suggests that they didn't pull permits to do the work. Yeah. And that just means you need to ask more questions. Don't take it as the gospel,
right.
but it just means like that's a very, very strong yellow flag that needs investigation. And then you just need to reach out to codes to see what kind of permits have actually been pulled and get on the phone with them and ask the questions. But you can also, under permit history, just very briefly, you can go into view all permit documents, and that'll take you right to the Metro Codes permit search. And so that takes you right to the search portal that they're going to use at codes when you call them up and ask questions. Good deal? Yeah. Was there one other question in the back? Anybody else? Okay, so let's keep trucking. We've kind of gone through the left-hand pane here. One of the other things I want to talk about is aerial imagery, because I think that's really valuable for me, because it seems as though whenever I get tied into a controversy of some sort, it has to do with what's going on with the property. So let's go back over here to this guy. We're going to go to, I'm just going to keep different examples up here so that we can, I'm going to go back to my primary residence. And on my primary, when I look at our aerial imagery, we can see, and it's very recent, right? 2022 is really recent, and we love that. So we can zoom in a little bit more. No, that's about the most it'll give me. But in 2022, last year, you can see my blue pickup truck that I parked right out here in the alley. You can see lots of things going on. You will not catch me out mowing the grass because I actually have a nice young man that comes and does that for me. So you will never see that in my imagery. But I can also step back in time and see what's going on. You can see the cars are changing here in the alley, right? Not a whole lot's changing in this neighborhood. But let's go back quite a bit in time to 1996. Now the quality wasn't really good back then, right? But look what's happened to the property since 1996. You can see that there was one home here and it had this huge pull around area. And so the backstory is Sun Records used to own this house too, and they used this as overflow for all their Sun Records parking. And then if you step forward in time, it looks like 2000, they didn't get a good image. There we go. 2006, we caught it. 2005, it looks like. Yeah. So this is our first next image where all the homes were built. And it shows that they've torn down the one house right there and then built 4 dwellings there. And just like we were talking about before, if I go back to look at the gray base map right there, you can see that they did have the dotted line there before because they had one big lot here with the one house on it. Remember that? Let me go back down here and show you again. This 1996 image, they just had one big lot there with one house on it. And they had that dotted line. So what they did there was they reverted that dotted line back to a solid line, just like I did in Madison, which is a right that I have. I don't have to file anything in particular, just a quick claim deed to say that I want to do it. But then one thing they have had here that I don't have in Madison is it was zoned R and not RS. So that gives them the ability to put a duplex on each side. And then if they want to have each side of that duplex be alienable or sellable to different owners, then they can file an HPR PUD overlay so that those essentially become very equivalent to single family homes. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Let's do it again. Thank you. These are my favorite comments. Was like, I just lost the path on how to get there. You just go right up here to the top right and you see the layer list and the base map gallery. We want to go to the base map gallery. And that gives you all of your floating menu selections here where you can pick which year you want to look at. And that can be helpful if you have like an adverse possession issue where you're trying to show that a fence, for instance, has been in the same location for 20 years. You can, this is not really going to rise to the level of admissibility, but it sure does rise to the level of negotiation proof to say, hey, this fence has been here for 20 years. They have adverse possession rights, or maybe at least a prescriptive easement to leave that fence where it is for a while, because I can show you through aerial imagery that it goes back to 1996 and that fence was there at least that long. So aerial imagery is really helpful that way. So if you ever want to look for a progression of what's going from a bird's eye view, it's not perfect because you saw in mine, we're missing some years, but it's all kind of coalesced for you there in one spot. So now we've got 3 things done over there.
Sorry,
Yeah.
jump in. One thing where this is really important, and if you want to have some fun, is go look at a property that would have been affected by the 2010 flood. So when people ask, and it's funny because like where I live now in Bellevue, just down the road from me, the whole community flooded, right? And some people's yards are in the flood zone, and you'll see the flood zone map and it gets real close to the house. Go look at these. This is what Zillow can't provide clients. This is what automated systems aren't. This is, I think, a really important part of our value as agents to do this type of due diligence when you're taking listings, you're getting prior to offer stage, and show the client those tools, right? Show them that imagery and things.
Yeah.
It's really amazing to see. I mean, just go to downtown. I mean, if you scroll to downtown and see, you can see that water halfway up Broadway. Yeah, it's really interesting and valuable information. So
Yeah, good tip. Great tip. Any other questions about aerial imagery? So keep it on trucking. We were going to go to informational layers next. And that is going to be this guy right here. We just came from this base map gallery. We're going right next door to the layer list. And on the layer list, you see a bunch of selections that you can go to show different information to pop up on the screen. And you can see by default, they have zoning checked and they have cadastral layers checked. And I think that there's an option here where you can, there's a slider here that shows, that fades it in and out. If you want it, you know, really bright, that's the way to leave it there. Or if you want to fade it out and make it not so bright, you can do that. Probably more important for printing than anything else. But for a lot of humans out there in the world that don't do this for a living, these numbers don't mean a whole lot, but addressing really helps. So you can see the A's and the B's popped up there. You have your postal addresses. Boundaries is another thing. It gives you a little more information. Contour elevations. If you're worried about flooding, you can that gives you a little more information about flooding. We can tell that this house right here is probably the highest on my street, and everything else kind of flows downhill from that.
Hey, boy, I noticed under addressing, if you click the arrow, under addressing, if you click the right arrow over there, I noticed my house numbers was
Oh,
not by
yeah.
default. You click that, that'll show you the numbers of the actual
Good
home
point.
for mailing.
And just like above, you can make that more and less opaque too. Yeah.
I'll often use this in concert with Google Street View when I'm looking at properties or you want to preview things. And I encourage my clients to do that before they favorite any house to send me to see. Because we'll drive up and they'll be like, oh, there's a power line. I'm like, things that could have been solved with the internet. Yes, sir.
My address is grayed out. Okay.
The address, like right on my screen, you mean this address right here?
Yeah, where it says addressing, like the check box.
Oh, gotcha. Let's see.
Someone suggested zoom in
Yeah.
a little bit.
If it's zoomed out, of course, yeah, it does get grayed out right there. Yeah, great point. Looks like you have to get about that close before it gets black again. Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. I didn't know that was an issue because I usually always work with it about this close. Unlike what you guys do when you're farming out there, you're probably going to be zoomed out quite a bit because you're going to be looking for a neighborhood. But usually I'm dealing with it on a lot basis. So I stay pretty close to it.
What's the face of
All that is the brightness on the screen of the numbers. So if you want that to be there, but you want to highlight other data, you can bring that down, fade it out a little bit, and that'll let the other data shine through a little more. Probably only important if you're getting ready to print it or print it to a PDF, and that's something that you want to subdue that language a little bit. So we're going to take out the addressing. We talked about contour elevations. You have the community character policy. That gives you, I think this is where you see the overlays. Let's see. Yep, there we go. So we see an urban design overlay right there. If we take that away, that yellow goes away. If you're interested in floodplains and you can't find it through CRS, or you don't like the way that CRS presents it, you can go to floodplains and click that on and it'll show it. I don't even know if there's a floodplain anywhere near. Yeah, we can go down here and see some floodways. See how that pops in and out. And so if you're in this neighborhood right here, it'd be pretty important to see that floodway and how it impacts this HPR unit versus this HPR unit, right? Or this is another good example right here. This home right here, Donna Whitehouse, she probably would be a great candidate for an elevation certificate, right? Because it looks like the lot is technically in a floodway, but the home is not. So that might be an opportunity to look for an elevation certificate. An elevation certificate is a surveyor that goes out there and says that, gives an opinion that says that even though the flood plain comes into the lot, because of the elevation of the home, the floodplain does not endanger the home. Yeah. Yeah. And it's the tool that we use most often to get homeowners out of required flood insurance. Mhm. Yeah, yeah, that's why many times that's why they're built up high. But remember that the floodplains, they change every 10 to 15 years. FEMA will put out a new flood map based on what's going on. And so, yeah, so you might have a property that was built up high, but now the floodplain's been redrawn, so it pulls it kind of far away, and you really don't need it to be that high. Yeah. So, yeah, other question? About every 10 to 15 years. Yeah, although they can anytime they want. Yeah, FEMA, they have broad discretionary powers to change flood maps, but they're also kind of taxed with the work that they do, so they don't do it that often.
Hold on one second, Lloyd.
Mhm.
Do you need a hand back there? It's just. Hold on. You don't need a hand?
I can't remember, but I think that it was within the last 5 years. I think that's right. Yeah, that sounds about right. They did, yeah. That was the first time after the 2010 flood. Yeah. Mhm. That's right. Yeah. So now we're back over here to my primary residence again, looking at it from the regular screen. And we've gone through a lot of the informational layers. These are just fun for you to play around with and see what pops up, okay? But of course, stormwater is there too. That's nice. It can show you streets. And remember, just like Teddy pointed out, anytime you see the little caret over there, you want to go down and click on the caret to see what kind of information you can have pop up there. Streets and railroads. So just remember, if you're dealing with a property that is abutting a railroad, those records are really, really hard to find in terms of what is the width of the easement that the railroad has for running the railroad, like say if it's going through the backyard. Water features, tax districts, all that's very, very useful stuff in there that you can just click on and click out when you need it. So now we're done with the left-hand side over there. Any other questions about informational layers?
Okay, did you say that you can find did you say you can find the railroad is how far it comes to the property line?
Yeah, but
Like it's-
I caution you, don't rely on what you see in here see in this system as the gospel for how wide the easement is for the railroad. So,
I mean, I wouldn't use this gospel, but I would just.
yeah.
Curious,
So if you go into streets
okay.
and click on this little caret over here to the right, see that guy? And expand it and bring it on down. You can see railroads as an option that you can click on. And we don't have any railroads close by to me, but there are some. If we, go over to Creve Hall, you're going to see lots of railroads over there, So that's our informational layers. So let's turn to, what kind of time are we looking like? 11:27.
Just
So
take what you need, Lloyd, because I know we had some interruptions. So
yeah.
if you need to leave, obviously just jump out. But
That's
we'll make
right.
Sure not to cut.
I'm going to try to hustle a little bit because I have a closing that I need to be back at the office at noon. Yeah, that's right. But still, we still have about 30 minutes, 20 minutes that we can get the rest of this done. Print capture, there's a couple ways that you want to think about printing, okay? So there's a way that you can print just this imagery here, and then there's a way that you can come over here to the left and print what you see in the left-hand pane, okay? So remember, there's two print functions in here, and you see both print pop-up toasters right there. So this guy here and the one on the very right. Focusing on the one on the left for the moment, if we click on that, this is really, really frustrating for people because if I right-click and print on this guy, it gives me a blank screen. How many people have ever run into this? And they are super, super frustrated by that. What I want you to do is go to More Settings, and for Scale, go to Custom, and make it 90 or less. Now, isn't that the dumbest crap you've ever heard of?
That's amazing.
Yeah,
Good, yeah.
that's right. So if you were wanting at least one magic trick today out of this, I think everybody just got it, right?
That's it.
So let's do it again. I'm going to start from scratch, just so nobody misses out on this little tasty morsel. So I'm going to go back out of my print screen. Remember, we're here in the main screen. We found our property, and I've got my general information over here, and I want to print it. Well, I see it on my screen here, but the challenge everybody would run into is once they printed what they see on their screen, it would always give nothing to the printer. What I have to do is come down here to custom. If I go to default, you see, it gives me blank screen. It gives me blank paper, I'm sorry, blank paper. And that's true even if you're printing it to a PDF. It'll just give you a blank PDF. But if you hit the scale correctly to custom, that's right. I don't know why they do it that way, but it's a workaround and it works every time. And now you guys know it. I did it the hard way. I had to figure it out. There was one day that I really, really needed that printed. And I said, by God, I'm a sharp guy. I'm going to sit here until we figure this out. Maybe, well, I'm on an Apple today. Yeah. Maybe on my iPhone, it would work great. Oh, there you go. There you go. Yeah. But just know if it works, then great, good for you. If it doesn't work, there's your fix right there. Yeah. So that is one of the print functions that we see. And by the way, when you print that, you can see all of the different information is going to be listed there in a long, long document. Okay. So that's a ton of stuff there. And it's going to feel like you've printed off CRS, you know, but you're going to get a little bit of different information on this than you would CRS. And sometimes this imagery right here from a little summary imagery in that little keyhole is helpful when being different from what CRS would provide. So second print function is going to be over here. There's a lot of different options from this print map feature. What I want you guys to focus on is ignore everything except for letter landscape and letter portrait. Okay, I'm gonna say that again. When you pull this down, ignore everything except for letter landscape and letter portrait. Now, what I want to do is I'm going to click on letter landscape here. Okay. That's not printing for me. A second, we do it again. There. Boom. There we go. So that's what that print feature looks like there. And that's useful if you want to make like, I've used this before when I'm going to go before the Board of Zoning and Appeals, or back in the old days when I used to litigate some things, I would use it as a nice framework if I was going to introduce it into court as an exhibit, because it explains it to everybody. It's a complete description of what's going on there, including all of these little guys down at the bottom, all of these little guys down here, including the scale. So super useful there. Now, sometimes you have to take a couple stabs at this to make sure you're getting in the frame everything that you want. But just remember that if you back out and I zoom out and then print this guy, takes it a minute to consolidate it, get it all into the format that it needs. And you click print out right there. Now it's zoomed out in my 8.5 by 11 that's landscape. Okay. And similarly, if you're dealing with something where in this case, maybe I'm trying to look at the street, Clayton Avenue, which is running east to west, and that's what I want to capture. Landscape is perfect for that. If you're dealing with something that's north-south, you might want to use portrait, and that'll capture it better for you. But it does a lovely job of getting both of those in there for you. Good deal. Now, if for some reason, now you remember, I'm going to do exactly what I said I wasn't going to do, which is only look at letter portrait, letter landscape. Tabloid is essentially a double letter size piece of paper. So tabloid is 11 by 17. So do any printers here have 11 by 17?
We do.
Okay, great.
All of them are stocked up. It's very helpful.
Yeah.
When you're especially working with builder plans or things that you want larger, don't be afraid to choose tablet.
Yeah, that's great. So just remember tabloids 11 by 17, and you can get a PDF of this map or print it from here too. So you know what? How about this? Let's do something fun. We're going to do tabloid landscape right there. That's printing.
I'd be trying to render it or something.
Yeah, rendering these things does take a moment. There we go. Now we can go to printout, and there it is. But now this thing is going to be really, really big. So I'm going to print this guy. We're going to go to Sally. Hopefully,
It doesn't work.
oh, it doesn't.
Since we've replaced all those, so.
Oh, yeah, you're right. All right, let's just cancel that.
Print that, like the 11 by 17, you have to go to the printer and do something, or will it just automatically print?
So I'd love to tell you yes, but technology and settings and all those things. So
In a perfect world, it should.
in a perfect world,
Yeah.
it should. I will check in on it today to see that if there's any settings that we need to make sure are loaded that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if anybody already has the new printer loaded up on your laptop and you want to do that and give it a shot, we may have that answer before you leave. We just don't have the printer loaded up on this machine. Good deal? Okay, so that's print capture. Everybody good with the left-hand print where we have to adjust the scale and the right-hand print where we have to select our framework that the map's going to appear in? Good? So now we're going to search by shape. This is what you're going to love if you're a farmer, if you're out there looking for dirt for a builder, or if you just, for whatever reason, you want to communicate with everybody in one narrow, hyper-local area. Now, we all know that there's all kinds of services out there, and they're all shaking you down for money on how to send out postcards and all that business. Well, this is a way that you can get a little scrappy and maybe really narrowly target what you want to do through a system like this. So let's say that you have a client that's a buyer need, and they really, really just want to be near Sevier Park. Let's say they're on the board for Sevier Park, and they're like, you know, I wouldn't move unless you found me a property that's near Sevier Park. And you're like, okay, well, let's see what we can do. I'm going to go to, let's see, let me find my shapes. Here we go. Ownership. A second. I'll tell you what, before we do that, there's one piece that I want to show you that kind of helps out with this too, and that's the measuring. So I want to jump down to the very last thing because this can be kind of helpful too. So when you're measuring, I want you to use this little piece right here. And this is not great. It's not perfect. So if you want to figure out the distance, you can click on that little measuring length icon as opposed to the measuring area icon right there. And in this case, it's in miles, but I want to know feet. Okay. So I'm going to select feet here. You can even select nautical miles if you want to. God bless you if you do that. So on Ferguson Avenue, I want to figure out how far we are away from Sevier Park. So I can click right here, and that's my beginning point. And then click right over here, and I'll know to the alley, for instance, we've got, you have to hold it and hover over there. And that gives us 1160 whatever feet. So it's not perfect, but it does give you an estimate of how much it is. And you can keep clicking too, by the way. So if I go here and here, if I want to walk that block and through the alley, now I know that it's 2,600 feet is what I've walked if I make all three of those waypoints. Okay. So that's pretty useful. Click it off, click it back on to restart it, and you're back into feet again. You can do it again that way. If I want to figure out, for instance, what is the area of Sevier Park, can just do it like that. And I'm sure you guys have used, even in MLS, there's lots of polygon rendering. So now we know that Sevier Park, more or less, is about 22 acres, right? So you can do it that way too. If you're using lots, you may be more interested in looking at square feet. So we know that it's almost 1 million square feet for the lot. Good deal. Let's see. Let's go back over here. So this neighborhood's a little bit better for looking at shapes that I wanted to talk about before for the first run. So let's say, for instance, I've got this lot here on Wiley Street, and I know that I had a really good run with finding a lot that was double width, not just 50 feet, but 100-foot lot frontage like this one next door. But I just wanted to quickly create a list of all of these homes over here, see if anybody's going to sell, and to evaluate which ones of those are going to be eligible for that type of move. Then I go over here to shape. And you remember all my searches? I had parcel, address, intersection, owner, street name, property description, custom, which just gives you a lot of different fields that you can fill in. But you also have shape. You can search by shape. So if I just want to search everybody on my street, I'm just going to do a line. And I'm going to start here. Oh, wait, I'm sorry. You got to hold it down for this one. I'm going to draw a line down to there, release, and it gives me a list of all of those properties that my line has intersected. And it'll highlight them for you to show you which ones you've got on the screen.
Line blown.
Yeah. And then, of course, that easy export to Excel there. I'm going to do it again for you. Okay. Well, I'm not going to do all that, it appears. I don't want to. I'll get out of this. Where's my X? Well, there we go. That's what it looks like. That's what the data output looks like. So you'll notice that a lot of the contact managers that you guys will use want an owner's first name and last name. You don't get it that way. So you don't get everything you want. It just has, you know, Presley, Catherine, Virginia, for instance. So that's going to be sufficient for sending out a mailing. So if you want to send it to a mailing label, that'd be great. But you may need to go in there and rework those names if you're trying to get it into a CRM.
And if you're doing the farming, I mean, I would encourage handwriting. Sounds awful. Huge difference in open rate.
Yeah.
Huge, huge, huge difference.
Sounds effective, probably, right?
Yeah.
Awful and effective.
It is kind of like real estate.
Yeah.
So, just kidding. We love it, don't we? Did you want to see that again? of
Yeah,
how
let's
that-
do it again. I'm going to do the other side of the street. So remember, I'm going to start off looking kind of like this down here.
Can I do one thing for you real
Yeah,
quick?
go ahead.
So another way for those at home too, so you can see this bigger. Do you see this little arrow up here? Just make that go away, and then this can get a little bigger for you, just so you can see that.
Yeah.
Okay, you know how to
Yeah.
get that guy back. You need it.
Yeah. Just that guy right there.
So
Yeah. You can definitely do that. Like I said, I usually work on one lot. So I hardly ever minimize that screen.
Yeah.
Because I'm always in there trying to pull things out of that pane. But it's a great tool if you're just
yeah,
trying to get your polygon right.
because you'll
you
see
know?
when you click on these and hit view parcel details, all this stuff auto pops over here on the left, so you can be peeking at that. So if there's something especially that I'm looking at often as I'm like looking at different things, when I hit view parcel details, that'll update the data on the left.
Yeah. Now remember that if I go over here, right now I've got 213 Level Street over here because that's the last one that we zoomed in on view parcel detail. A mistake that a lot of people will make is they'll click over here, but they won't click on view parcel details. So they've got it highlighted and they feel like this is that information on what's highlighted, but it's not until you click on view parcel details. Okay. So just make sure that you have updated that. But let's do that line maneuver one more time.
Can you clear that from the search?
You know, if there is a way to do it, I don't know how to do it. In other words, the burgundy that's up there, I know you can do it by looking at a new search. Yeah, so I can go here, view parcel details there. No, it's only a search that gets you there. Yeah, it's only a search. So if I go to shape to do our search again, and I'm going to draw a line, remember? Now let's say I want to get everything over here on Gallatin Road, which is going to be these parcels, and then everything down Wiley Street, but only on that side of the road. I'm going to go down to here, and that's going to give me every parcel that line intersected. Okay. If you just want to do like a shotgun blast, you can also do circle. I know you guys have used that a lot in MLS. That's going to give every parcel that's in the circle. You get the burgundy highlighting to help too. And then you can also do polygon. So if you want to, you can just be as weird about it as you want to be and create a polygon. Okay. Just kind of draw yourself a odd little shape. I think actually with polygon, I think you have to connect. No, it did give it all to me right there. It just took a minute to render it. Let's do another polygon just to see. I'm going to do a polygon that looks kind of like this. I'm just going to say I want those properties, and it did it. Yeah. Right. Yeah. So it's another way. You can also do that with lines just by kind of squiggling through it, because as long as the line or the polygon intersects any piece of the lot, it's going to include it in your data set. So it's a great way to farm right there. If you're looking for another way to do that, or if you want to do it while you also have some of this other data on the same screen. Yeah. But just remember that the only drawback that I know of is your owner information is probably going to be just a little bit different than what you want, than what your CRM may want.
So it has the current address.
Yeah, but it's a merged address, you know. Some of the CRMs want street, city, state, zip. They want all that broken out. So you may have to do just some good old fashioned data entry as to those points if you want it in the CRM. But right. But if you're just doing a mailing label, this is great. You know, you can just use a good old fashioned word merge and get her done. Or if you're taking the Teddy method and doing the handwrittens, you know, you just use this as your checklist. Oh, I love it. Thank you.
It is.
Yeah. Yeah. Yay. I love it. Yeah.
They always were so sweet, they never said you idiot.
Yeah.
And then this, I just want to know what my new neighbor's names are, and I can do it like this.
Totally can do it.
If
Yeah.
I'm having an open house, I can do that line, and then I can know who my neighbors are before I'm here. I'll drop them off a little card before I go downstairs.
Yeah, that's right.
Great stuff.
Move in next to me because I want you to be the welcome wagon in my neighborhood, you know?
You can do that.
Yeah.
It's like I'm gonna go with that HPR.
If you just go back down and click on line again.
Click on any line.
No, line.
Oh, yeah, gotcha. Oh, yeah, it goes away. You're right. Because you're preparing for a new search. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. Yeah, what another question?
How do you use a word merge? I know it's not really.
That gets beyond the scope of what we're doing here. Yeah, but I'll bet you Teddy can get somebody that's much better with word merge than I am to do a little class on that. But at least you got the data, right? So my goal is to get you at least as far as the Ninja handwritten notes, right? Yeah.
Real Tracks actually offers some classes on like how to show you the word merge. It lost me so I could track it, but I remember logging on and having it over and over.
Yeah.
And I think it transfers to all.
Yeah.
Let's stay together. Let's stay together.
Yeah, hold it together.
What's the custom next to change?
Custom is just the laundry list of parameters that you can key in if you want to. So you can pretty much search by all of these different things here. That's just a little bit mind-blowing for me. I've never had to use this as a tool, but I imagine that it's there because somebody has had a you know, a look for it. Look, so if you wanted to find all of the properties in Nashville that were eligible for adult entertainment, you know, I'm sure if somebody in here had a commercial client that was Hustler, if Larry Flint called you up, you would say, let's go, Larry, let's find you your next Hustler store. We're going to do adult entertainment right there. Yeah. So that's a great example of just playing around with this thing is going to teach you and get your skills much, much sharper than any 1 hour class. Virginia? Yeah.
What happens if you're not searching in Davidson?
Well, then you're outside of this bubble. Yeah. Then you've got to go to another county's mapping service. Now, generally they call these GIS, Geographical Information Services. So you can, none of them are as good as Davidson is the gold standard in my book. And I think I would put Davidson County up against any county in the nation in terms of what they provide for us now that they've got those things linked back to the Register of Deeds.
And sometimes if you're out, because I've been looking at some counties, and you can't find it on the county side, you might say city
Mhm.
has a GIS.
Yeah.
And then you have to look there and start.
Right. Yeah. Now most of them,
Don't, if it's a small county.
oh yeah.
they're just not-
Small county, you're just going to go to the Tennessee mapping service, you know, and it's some information, especially if you're dealing with farmland community, it's better than nothing, right? Yeah. Another question?
How did you pull that measuring tool to say, like,
Oh yeah. I love those questions. See that little measuring tool right there?
oh,
Yeah. You just click on that, but everything's kind of in a different place. So,
What's the house?
oh, that just gets you back to home. That's it. So since I want to get back here, we're going to go to address, Wiley Street, search. And now we're right back where we started. Good. But the measuring tool, you just pull that up and remember this is area and this is length. And to be honest with you, I've never even fiddled with this guy over here. What is this? Location. Yeah. So it's going to give you degrees. It really depends on what I'm looking for. Like if I'm dealing with land in Davidson County that happens to be more rural, I may be looking for area so I can determine which parcels I'm looking for that are tracts in a deed. And I can look for the area because we know that those tracts a lot of times at the very end show the acreage of the tract. So if I'm like, I know that I'm looking for a 5.12 acre tract, I can eliminate a lot of, you know, easy things that just aren't anywhere near 5 acres. Yeah.
You can't break anything in here. So, you know, what I would consider is during your free time, instead of scrolling social, play in this system. Just play it. And 20 years of business, I've never known about the line and those tools. So thank you so much. And like, that's just such an awesome tool.
Well, I am about at the end of my time. I only have 9 minutes to get to my closing over in Melrose. So that's challenging for me. But this was a definite worthwhile investment that I wanted to do for you guys. This is one of those things that a refresher helps too. So this is the second time I've done the class here at Village, and I'll probably do it again once a year or something like that, maybe sooner if you guys want it. So just be vocal about the things I can help you out with, and I'll jump back in there for you.
This could be a great CE class. Thank you so much. You want to leave this here and we'll get it back to you? Or you want to take it with you? Okay, I know you got to
We'll do that.
So we can answer any questions or I'll field them and happily jot them down. We can get them to lawyer. I'm happy to see if I can answer any of those. Do we have questions or other items? Awesome.
Good. So there's tons of champagne here. Drink all you want. And Teddy, if you'll award some bottles to good students in the class.
I absolutely will. Yep. Bottle service, third floor. Yep.
That's right. No sparklers on the bottles.
I'll make sure to leave that at the front for you, your tubs and things.
Oh yeah. All I need is a tub back. That's it.
There you go.
Thanks,
Yeah.
guys.
Thank you, Laura.
You guys are a great class.
I still look at this thing too, and I look at this map, it's a pretty picture of it, so when we have a personalized, what do you call it? Presentation.
Yeah.
I can find a picture, I found that, I don't know how I found it.
Yeah.
I said, hey, the picture thing, and you know, I kept pulling it up too.
sounds like it.
Isn't it fun digging around in here?
Yeah.
That's just how I learned everything too. It's just over 10 or 12 years. Just playing
Oh, I
around,
click
trying
the,
to know
if you click the
what-
camera and then we click, we click select the point, then it pulls up that piece there.
Yeah, yeah.
It is Google Street View, so you can view it on, yes. Was there another question or comment or addition? Thanks, Lloyd.
Oh, no. Thanks, guys.
Thank you so much. All right. Okay, let's go do that again. So you're in Parcel Viewer and you're going to click camera. And then it tells me when I go over here, select a point. So I'm just going to click and then it pulls this up. And it's just importing the Google Street View, right? But I love that, Mary Beth. Thank you for right up here in your tools. Near the printer. Printer, this. That's right. Sometimes your computer might have pop-up blockers and things like that. So something to be mindful of.
I just wish that at least our media.
Yep. We all can't be right. Exactly. What was the question? Somebody have a question?
What is William, do we know what Williamson County's parcel?
I don't.
No, I just put in, Williamson County parcel.
But here's what I was explaining about the flood map. So in this neighborhood, you can kind of see, often they'll have a map that says 2010 flood imagery. So you can literally see what happened here. Okay, so this is where the Harpeth, this is where the bend happens. I mean, Bellevue is one of the huge affected neighborhoods. And so this is a park down here now, but you can just see what was happening. Like, that's all water.
Yeah,
And-
somebody says like, you know, this flooded.
Do you know? Yeah, and you can say, like, you don't just have to guess or rely on the seller's opinion or things like that. You have the image right here. And yeah, awesome, Maribeth. Thank you. Any other questions? I know we ran long. Sorry for the tech issues. We'll get those things buttoned up. Please continue. I've had a lot of people sending me class ideas, so don't hesitate to send that. If you see or hear something or you learn something new, send me tech tips and send me things that we can share. And please also feel free to use the Facebook exclusive